Howdy friends, No Man's Sky Fractal is here, and boy howdy has it made an impact. For many, it's hugely positive. For a few others, vaguely negative. I personally find this update to be more impactful to my minute-to-minute gameplay than the big 4.0 waypoint update, but I've seen plenty of folks complaining that this update just isn't for them. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions, of course, but I think there's something very important that people are forgetting. Context. I'm Kanaju, and these are my thoughts on No Man's Sky Fractal. Now, this was originally going to be a review, but as I finished the script, I realized that this video is actually about explaining Hello Games' approach to game development, marketing, and community management, and why that context matters. So, look forward to my full review in the next 48 hours. Right now, I'd like to talk about a topic that I believe is important for everyone to hear, and applies to many situations. Alright, so No Man's Sky's 2023 kicks off with Update 4.1, Fractal. An odd name, given the content, but that's nothing new. Looking at you, No Man's Sky Beyond, /Endurance, /Waypoint, /Frontiers, /or. You can interpret the name however you like, but that actually doesn't matter. It's the content of the update that matters. Though that too is colored by our own expectations and personal biases. Back in December, Sean more or less let us know we'd be receiving a PSVR2 update day and date with the hardware. I even put out a video in January with the update's release date in the thumbnail. Saved y'all a click, you're very welcome. So it's fair to say that we've known for months that we would receive an update adding PSVR2 support on February 22nd, 2023. So February 22nd arrived, an update for PSVR2 support landed, and some folks
within the community
were both surprised and disappointed. But why though? Well, Sean tweeted a snowflake emoji. If you want a whole history of Sean tweeting emojis to tease updates, you can check out one of my recent videos, which I'll link in the description below. But in essence, a snowflake could mean fractals, which funny enough it actually did in this context, but fractals could also mean procedural generation, super formula, the whole shebang. And because of this, some people thought this could be the biggest update ever. You know who you are. I thought it could be, right? It could also be a weather overhaul, a change to icy biomes. Everyone always has their own wild theories, because speculating's fun. And as we've seen in the past, it could literally mean anything. Anything at all, related or not. And because it could mean anything, actually expecting anything specific from a specific emoji, that would be a huge mistake. I've been saying this for years, and I'll keep saying it, but always keep your expectations in check. This update made several important improvements across the game without all the controversy of waypoints changes, so to me that's a good update. The only way to be disappointed by an update that makes the game better is if you were expecting an even bigger update that did even more than that. Perhaps Hello Games should do more to manage expectations, be more transparent before an update. But at the same time, when people expect an overhaul to procedural generation or new biomes because Sean tweeted a snowflake, and then they're disappointed when it's not there, it's hard to sympathize with those folks. In the past, whenever Hello Games have shared the intended focus of an update ahead of time, folks still miss the point and would speculate wildly. Short of giving us the patch notes ahead of time, there's not much Hello Games can do to control people's imaginations running wild. It's just the kind of game it is. Heck, my imagination still runs wild reading the patch notes anyway, since they're designed to be hype, so even that wouldn't necessarily be a good solve. At the end of the day though, it's up to each of us to manage our own expectations. If you were expecting PSVR2 support and bug fixes, as I suggested in my last video, then Fractal likely exceeded all expectations. Great update. If you were expecting the game to suddenly regenerate trillions of planets and refine gameplay loops and become exciting in a way that you specifically wanted, well then I'm guessing PSVR2 support and bug fixes weren't going to satisfy you. In both cases, Hello Games produced the same positive work. Whether or not the player was satisfied was up to the player themselves. Now, that doesn't mean we should give Hello Games a pass on actual bad updates. I famously thought Exomech was a terrible update, making the game worse. Companions didn't add anything outside of the headline feature, and while I personally enjoyed Waypoint, people did have fair reasons to complain. But when it comes to Fractal, it's good. Pretty much objectively. And I'll back that up with my next video, listing all the good stuff, but right now I need to explain what I meant earlier by putting this update into context. I've watched Hello Games closely over the last 7 years as they've updated the game. Closer than most, probably. I read every patch note, every blog post, every interview. I play through every update and every expedition. And with everything I know about Hello Games, I think something needs to be explained. I've seen some friends this week complain that this update only benefits VR players or Switch players, that Hello Games are ignoring the rest of the fanbase, that if Hello Games don't start focusing on making them happy, the game will lose its main player base. Well, besides how silly all of that sounds in the context of 7 years of free updates,
it also sounds silly within the context I am about to explain. Ignore the robot voice.
Over the years, Hello Games have changed their approach to community support and updates. They've gone from several months between life-changing updates to instead several weeks between more focused updates. Gone are the Atlas Rises and the Nexts. Gone are the updates that change every aspect of the game all at once. Instead, we have the Companions update, which adds companions. We have the Expeditions update, which adds expeditions. The Sentinel update, which, surprise surprise, added new Sentinels. Sean has stated that they switched their update format away from larger updates for 2 reasons. 1, they took a long time to make, so players were waiting 6 to 12 months at a time without any new content. Secondly, they contained so many new features, the old updates, that players would focus on the biggest ones and forget the rest. Think about it, most people remember Beyond adding VR support, making all ships bigger and more detailed, adding the Nexus, revamping NPCs, adding creature riding and cooking. But I bet not too many remember the tech trees were added in that update, or the new discovery page, the overhaul to the mining beam after 3 years. Inventory was changed, and a bunch of things like that. When an update overwhelms a player with a bunch of new features, they can't appreciate all of them. Sean was saying this around the time of the Living Ship update. He was saying that if living ships were included as part of a larger update, some players would pay attention to them while others would miss them for other new features. By making them the main focus of the update, they were able to flesh them out more, and they felt more special as a result. So to summarize, players get content more often, and they're able to appreciate more of it. It's a win-win, right? Plus, if one update isn't for you, it's a shorter wait to the next one. Not bad. So you're probably guessing that I'm saying all of this to explain why PSVR2 was the main focus of the Fractal update, right? Well, yeah, that's part of it. But there's another aspect to Hello Games' release methods that most folks haven't considered. You see, the other benefit to having smaller, focused updates is that the gaming press can write great headlines more often. For example, No Man's Sky adds living ships in latest update. Or, you can now pilot a mech in No Man's Sky. Or even, No Man's Sky adds PSVR2 support. This is important because it reaches a lot of players outside of the community. With Beyond, a headline might say, adds VR support, or adds new multiplayer hub, or overhauls gameplay and NPCs. But that headline likely wouldn't say all 3 of those things. So depending on what the writer finds most exciting, they may or may not share what Hello Games finds most exciting, or what their reader will find most exciting. So by focusing their updates on less features, Hello Games have more control over their development, marketing, press, and player feedback. It just makes more sense. Alright, so at this point you probably think I've done enough to explain this update's focus on VR, right? Well, there's actually one more factor that I think plenty of other members of the community have forgotten. No Man's Sky is still a small fish in the grand scheme of things. Hello Games tend to release their updates at advantageous times in order to get as much free press coverage as possible. You don't want to release an update on the same day as God of War Ragnarok because everyone's going to be playing that and thus making content on that. So now you've released this killer feature, and it hardly gets any press or content coverage. The easy solution is to release updates when the schedule is clear. Easy peasy, right? Well, what do you do when your update is scheduled to release on the same day as PSVR2 and all of its launch titles? There was so much news this past week, so many launch experiences to cover, that a 7-year-old game like No Man's Sky barely stood a chance. So I ask you, viewer, if you were Hello Games, and you knew you were going to release an update as part of PlayStation's marketing push, knowing everything I've told you, would you put in some huge game-changing feature that no one will cover? Or would you release a PSVR 2 update, throw in plenty of quality of life features to make the community happy, and then release the heavy hitters next month, when you can have the stage all to yourself? I know what I would do. And in case you're thinking, how could anyone outside of Hello Games have seen this coming? You need only look back 2 years to the release of the next generation update. That released day and date with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. And honestly, it added almost nothing besides next-gen support. But folks weren't disappointed because they told us ahead of time that's what it would be. It was the same strategy. Press and content creators would have their hands full with all the launch coverage, so they did their big Origins update a month before, leaving nothing to be overlooked in the next generation. It just makes sense. And so all of that rambling should explain why the Fractal update is what it is. It's because that's what it had to be. To those of you who I've seen being a bit more dramatic, complaining that Hello Games have forgotten what makes No Man's Sky special, and if they don't appease you, then the game will suffer. Well, to you I say, just chill, you know? Seriously, it's just a game, and Hello Games is just a company. They have lots of business factors to consider, millions of different players to please, and that's besides the technical and logistical limitations. In other words, the world doesn't revolve around No Man's Sky, and No Man's Sky doesn't revolve around us, as much as we'd like it to. Personally, every year, I hope for certain features that have still never come. I could make a whole channel dedicated to what I believe they should add to the game. But at the end of the day, I don't have access to the player data they have, I don't understand the inner workings of their workflow, and I don't know what it's actually like to make No Man's Sky content. So when they release a good update, like Fractal, I'm happy. I enjoy it, and I look forward to the next update. When they release a bad update, I send in a Zendesk ticket to report bugs, and I go on with my life. Anyway, that's just how I approach things. Could be wrong, could be right. Either way, I hope you found my insight and observations helpful. It's easy to forget just how complicated everything is, so I hope I explained everything clearly. If not, feel free to ask questions in the comments below. And let me know your initial impressions of the update and how your expectations influence them in the comments below. Maybe you think it sucks. I don't know. So let's hear it. And don't forget to leave a like or dislike for my efforts. Look forward to a regular video about Fractal's biggest features and why I'm enjoying it more than Waypoint in the next 48 hours. Might be out tomorrow, might be Monday. If you take anything away from this video though, remember that Hello Games are just a few passionate people trying to make millions of strangers happy. And while they certainly make mistakes, Fractal was not one of them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Maybe even this Atomic Heart one. Bye!